Are you prepared for the next pandemic and the fallout that could happen? And I'm not talking about the virus itself. I am talking about the breakdown of society that we are seeing right before our eyes in China. So stay tuned and we'll talk about that and how you can get prepared. Hi folks, welcome to Set Apart Homestead. This is Travis, the Prepared Homestead. And today's video isn't specifically talking about what's going on with the virus itself, and I'll probably make another video at some point as this thing goes along to analyze the actual virus. Today I want to talk about how you can be prepared for what might happen if a virus or even suspected virus outbreak starts happening here in the US. Before we get started, I'd appreciate it if you'd like to go ahead and click the like button and subscribe to this channel so that you can get updated on the newest videos that I put out almost daily. So, I'm sure most of you have all been watching what's going on, and you probably all have your opinions, and that's fine. And the reality is the data that's been coming out officially, well, let's just say it's probably not accurate because it's coming from the Chinese government, and they don't have a real good reputation of telling the truth. So I'm sure that they're, not telling it like it is. And the one reason is because there's a lot of evidence showing very contradictory information, especially with the amount of casualties, the amount of victims of this virus. And then there's also just the response of the government. If they are responding in the way that they say they are, then I would say it's a lot bigger than what they're letting on. But again, we won't get too deep into that today. Let's talk about the actual response. The response of the people, the citizens, and the response of the government. Because many times when there is some type of emergency situation, the response or the lack thereof causes more damage, or at least as much, as the actual emergency itself. Some examples are Hurricane Katrina and the one that hit Puerto Rico. While both of those hurricanes were damaging for certain, they were powerful storms and they did a lot of damage. The lack of response from the government and the way the people responded in panic caused as much, if not more, damage and casualties. And so I believe, because, well, we have so much historical evidence of emergencies happening, that it would probably play out the same way if this virus or another one hit America with, full strength. And we're not talking just the few people that are, have it now. I mean, it's already in the United States. To my knowledge, as of the making of this video, there are no cases in the United States where people became infected in the United States. All the cases that I have seen are people that got it in China and came over here with it. But remember, this thing has a 10 to 14 day incubation period where the patient is contagious during that time and they do not know they have it. So there is a potential for a lot of people to have contracted it already. And because it's happened just recently, there really hasn't been enough time for those new cases to start even popping up yet. We'll know within the next 2 to 4 weeks, I would say, if this thing seems to take hold here in the United States. But anyways, let's get on to how we can prepare for this. So my first thing is going to be food. It is a must to start preparing food. I talk about it, and many others talk about having a 1 to 2 year food supply. And, that's not just because, apocalypse happens and there's never another grocery store. Something like this, even though there may be grocery stores eventually, during the panic and during the breakdown, you may not have access to food. A lot of people don't know this, but the average city in America, and this is done by study, and I have read the studies, and I've experienced this before, so I can say from my personal experience, this holds to be true also, that the average city, regardless of size, has between a 2 and 3 day food supply within the city. And what that means is if that city is cut off from its resupply, the grocery stores will run out of food in 2 to 3 days. So even though you go to the grocery store and they're all over the place and their shelves are full, that's pretty much the only food they have. They don't have a lot of backroom stock anymore because they get resupplied pretty much daily. It's a pretty intricate system of how they're able to resupply these grocery stores every day, bringing you much fresher food than once was at the on the shelves of grocery stores, where the grocery stores in the past may have kept all their supplies in the back because they didn't get resupplied as often. Now it's daily. And so if the city gets cut off, an example like a quarantine, then it's going to run out of food in 2 to 3 days. And that's what's happening in China. There are 19 cities that they have quarantined. They are blockading the roads coming in, pouring piles of dirt and gravel and putting walls up and everything to keep from any traffic coming in or out of that city. And so the shelves of the grocery stores, as we're seeing in video footage, they are bare and people are starting to fight over food because they're hungry. And people will do that. We saw that in Venezuela, that when you start to become hungry and your belly's empty and your child's belly's empty and he or she is sitting there crying, wanting food, your civility level starts to drop rapidly. And you will do things, and your neighbors around you will do things you never thought you would ever do just to put food in your stomach. And so when something like this happens, or even another type of emergency happens, and your city gets shut off and cut off from the rest of the world and its supply chain, and 3 or 4 days later, the people in your area and on your street start getting hungry, they're going to do just about anything to put food in their belly. So you need to have a supply of food so that you're not having to go and stand in these lines and fight over food and maybe not get anything. You need to start right now. And if this happens, I'm not out on here trying to say the sky is falling and, create panic, because it's still a little soon to know if it's going to really take hold here in the United States. My worry is that no one is really doing much of anything here in the United States to prevent it from taking hold. So there is a potential for that to happen, but it may be a little too early yet to know. But you still have some time to start stocking up. And even if this isn't the big one, stocking up is certainly not going to hurt you. And I've talked about that many times. You should have a 6 month to 1 year supply of a working pantry. And what that means is the food that you eat on a daily basis, the stuff that has a longer shelf life, you should keep a 6 month to 1 year supply in your pantry, and you're just rotating that. As you use something up, you're constantly buying, you build up to that. You don't have to go out and buy all that. But ketchup, how many ketchup bottles will you use in a year's time? Keep that on hand and just rotate them. Then you should have another 1 to 2 year supply of long-term foods. This is your dry goods stored in Mylar bags with oxygen absorbers and buckets, freeze-dried foods, canned foods, things that have a longer shelf life. Anything from, say, 5, 10, and up to 30-year shelf life could be in your long-term food storage. And you're going to rotate that kind of stuff too, especially like canned goods, because they don't have as long a shelf life as, say, bags of rice that are vacuum sealed. But you've got to start with your food, and even if you already have it, you need to be building that rapidly. If I were you, over the next few weeks, I would be saying, okay, how much money can we take from any area over the next few weeks and put it into food or put it into supplies? And it may not be a bad idea, and I don't think that that's panicking, because in the end, even if nothing happens, you've just increased your supplies for a month and you've cut back on some fancy coffees and sodas and going out to eat. Don't break the bank into go into ridiculous debt over it. But maybe if you agree, if your family agrees to not go out to eat for the next month and take all that money and put it into food supplies, that's probably not a bad idea. The next thing to think of is medical supplies. As we're seeing over there, just the one city of Wuhan has between 45 and 60,000 hospital beds in that city. And they're saying that their hospitals are overrun, absolutely filled. There's videos of the hallways packed full of people standing outside trying to get in. They're packed. because the medical system is not capable of handling a mad rush of people. And I know that we probably have a much better medical system here in the United States, but it would very quickly become overrun also if there was a panic. And I'm not even saying that there were that many people that were sick. I'm just talking about the people that are panicking, worried that they're sick, would overrun the system very rapidly. The amount of medical supplies would dry up very quickly, and the hospital workers and the doctors and stuff would be overwhelmed. So even if you did get sick, and it may not even be for the virus, it could be for something else, you may not be able to go to the local hospital or local doctor to get your, medical needs taken care of because they would be so overwhelmed. So you need to have some medical supplies on hand. Medical supplies for injuries, broken bones, cuts, things like that. Medical supplies that, there are some things that you can get that are over the counter, so that, you can take care of certain things on your own. You can talk to your doctor about getting things like a prescription for ephedrine for allergic reactions. And it doesn't have to be the EpiPen. You can get it in little vials and give yourself a shot. It's not that difficult. And most doctors, if you seem to have some kind of allergic reaction to things, would go with prescribing something like that. And another thing is having some herbal medicine on hand, because there are a lot of things that herbal medicine and natural medicines can help when it comes to virus outbreaks like this. And I've made a video already on that, and I'll leave a link to that one below. And I'm getting ready to make another one that's much more in depth of the things that you can be doing now and during a big virus outbreak, especially what we're seeing with this coronavirus, herbally, to help you survive that infection. And so that's another thing to definitely stock up on, which is something my family and I are doing right now. We've taken an assessment of the types of medicines that we have in the home and seeing where we have weaknesses and what we need to get more of. And that's what we're currently doing. Because the medical system will be overrun. Other things that are getting overrun are things like the fuel. There's reports out of China that gas stations are shut down. They've either run out of gasoline and they're not being resupplied, which doesn't take very long, or the people that run them just aren't able to run them anymore. Maybe they're sick, or maybe they're panicked and they're staying home. But the point is that some of the reports that I'm seeing, that there are no open gas stations. And so it's creating a problem because the public transit system's been shut down, that the people in their homes that probably need to go to the hospital aren't even able to go to the hospital. They're stuck in their homes and they're sick and they can't even get treatment. Even if the treatment was actually there, they can't get there because there's no gas to put in their cars, there's no public transit system, and the emergency system like 911 is so overwhelmed they can't come get them. That could easily happen here in the United States. Our whole system of everything is so fragile, it doesn't take much to overwhelm it. And so if people start panicking, things like gasoline is going to dry up real fast. And we see that all the time in hurricanes and different storms, places that get heavy ice storms, places that have tornadoes, hurricanes. What's the first thing that the price goes up and that dries up? It's gasoline. So you can have gasoline stored up ahead of time. Gasoline does not have a very long shelf life. There are some additives you can put in it to extend the shelf life, but it's definitely something you want to rotate. So the point is let's say you want to keep 20 or 50 gallons of gasoline on hand. That's where you fill your car up out of that. And when you use it, you immediately take those cans and you fill them up at the gas station. Kind of create a system that way. That way you're constantly rotating that gasoline out. And you're always having the freshest gasoline because it'll last 6 months to a year pretty good, especially if you add some additive. You can extend that even a little longer. But if you have like generators that need gasoline and you don't have enough on hand to run your generator, then guess what? That generator is absolutely worthless. We're in the wintertime and many of us are still dealing with the cold and will be dealing with the cold for at least another 2 months. You need to be able to heat your home. If you don't have a way to heat your home, you should start figuring that out really soon. because fuel prices and anything is going to go up. It's already the winter time, so they're high anyways. And if there was even a panic of a pandemic, and I'm not even talking about the actual pandemic, just the panic of it could cause prices of that stuff to skyrocket. So have this kind of stuff on hand. Now, a lot of people are talking about protective gear. You know what? It's not a bad thing to have on hand. But all of the preliminary reports that I'm seeing out of China is the protective gear is not very effective. They're saying that this virus is shown to be transferred airborne and through mucus glands, people getting in the eyes and stuff. And here's the thing with that kind of stuff. You either have to start putting it on now and wear it till it's over, because if this thing is as strong as it is and as contagious as it is and it's airborne as it is, once it starts getting into your area, you could already be exposed to it. I guess it doesn't hurt to put it on. You got to keep it on pretty much all the time. And this is, of course, if you live in a city urban area. If you live out in the sticks, you're going to be a lot better off and have a lot less chance of getting it as long as you stay away from going into the city, which again, you need to have the supplies on hand to do that. You know, I'm not opposed to having protective gear, but the thing is like I said, some of the reports coming out is that it's not that effective. There's been doctors that I've read that have were in complete protective gear. There was actually a surgery going on when the beginning of this outbreak happened. The person that they were doing the surgery on had the virus that they did not know at the time. All the people in the OR room, the doctors and nurses who had masks on, who had goggles on, who had protective gear on, they all contracted the virus. It is believed the virus is actually penetrating some of these masks. And so if that's the case, some of that stuff may not be that useful. Doesn't mean you don't use it, but don't solely depend on that to protect yourself. Use good sanitation methods. Of course, you know, don't try to restrict the amount of time that you're going out in public. You know, if you're planning on going to a movie theater next week and it's starting to look like it's getting serious, then you probably shouldn't go to that movie theater, right? Now, what if it starts to actually outbreak and it's in your area? What can you do in your home? You can certainly do things like put up plastic sheeting over the windows and air ducts to try to keep viruses from coming in the home. But usually it's from direct contact with people. So one of the things you could do is create a decontamination area within your home. If you have an attached garage, that works great. You come into your garage, put the door down, have a little decontamination area where you take all your clothes off. You may put them in a bag, put some type of Lysol or something like that to possibly decontaminate and kill anything that's in that clothing, that could be in the clothing, and set up a little wash station right there where you decontaminate yourself and not bring it into your home. That is a really good idea because, you know, that prevents, or at least reduces, let's say that, it reduces the chance of bringing that into your home. Because if an outbreak starts, of course you're going to stop going out as much. You're going to keep people at home, but someone's going to have to go out at some time. And when you do and you come back, you should set up a decontamination area somehow to keep you from just bringing it into your family. It could be on your clothing because this has a surface life of 24 to 48 hours. And you need to be able to decontaminate yourself. These are some good measures to put in place. The thing is with preppers, the reason why we prep is so that we are what? Prepared. So let's not panic. Yeah, this virus, it could be the big one. Absolutely, it has the potential for doing that. I don't know yet. I don't think anyone knows yet. And so I don't think it's time to panic, but as preppers, we shouldn't really be panicking at all. We should be prepared and should be looking at this and finding ways to alter our preparedness plan and fix it and kind of change it as we see it's needed, because we're actually watching something happen in China. And it doesn't matter if there's actually only 1,000 people infected or if there's 2 million people. It doesn't matter. The fact is the people in those areas are panicking. And even if they don't have the illness, they are hurting because of the widespread panic in those areas. And there will most likely be people dying in those areas, not because of the virus, but because of the panic from the people panicking because of the virus. And that could certainly happen here in the United States. It's happened before, and it could most certainly happen again. So it's going to be your job to keep yourself and your family prepared for something like this, so that you do not fall victim to that panic and to the negative effects of the public's panic. So continue to watch this so that you can learn of what's going on, and also because it could be the real one, and that's why we are preppers, so that we prepare for them. All right, thank you very much for watching. Keep tuning back in, because I'm going to do a couple of more videos on how to better use natural medicine to try to reduce the chances of illness and succumbing to those illnesses when it comes to the virus that's happening and other viruses like it. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.